All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions, continuing our Dark Side of the Ring review series. This is going to be Dark Side of the Ring, Bash at the Beach 2000. Your host, Mike.
I'm Frank. Let's get into this, man. This is WCW's version of the Montreal
Mhm.
Screwjob with more lies in it. Pinocchio's nose will keep growing. This is just ridiculous. Now, you and I have covered this episode on Hogan's career review.
hmm
We've covered it extensively. We mentioned everything to date, every detail, and they still managed to come up with more BS. It's amazing.
Yeah, we
And
got, yeah.
I was I'm watching this and I'm trying to see, okay, which one is going to be the liar? And naturally, Eric Bischoff wins the honor. Although I did like what he had to say about Dave Meltzer. So let's get into it. They opened up with Vince Russo, of course, Mr. 32 years in the wrestling business. Going to Dave Meltzer after that, he thought Russo had done more harm than good that night. I agree with that. Um,
No, they asked him if he did more harm than good in
oh,
the
my bad.
wrestling
Yeah,
business. So I thought
I'm still on that night.
I thought that was pretty harsh because I don't think that he
I think he did more harm in WCW.
yeah, but he said overall. He was talking about overall in
Oh,
wrestling. That's not. I don't think that's true.
no, because
Nobody could have saved WCW. The ship was already sinking. So whatever he did there, okay, it was crap, but it wasn't that long, and nobody was
three
calling
months
it.
and then they
And,
pulled him.
and then he came back, but
Yeah,
the ship was already going down. So I don't know.
this storyline I've said it before could have possibly saved them a little bit, but it wasn't the answer to the company.
No.
It was a good storyline for
That's
people to tune in and get the
they were
ratings up a little bit.
they already hit the iceberg, man. It was going down.
But the one thing they didn't mention during this is that Brad Siegel told Vince Russo, "Don't call Hogan. I can't afford to pay him."
Right, they did leave that part out. We'll get
So
into it a little
we'll
later,
get
but yeah.
Meltzer was comparing, saying that how WWE, WWF from 84 to 96 was
hmm
dominant. And then, of course, WCW took over in 97,
96.
which we agreed was
96,
once,
basically. It took over 96.
yeah, middle of 96
hmm
through 1998, and it was over for them by 99. So, and then, of course, Eric Bischoff was on the show. He said he wanted to do when he got into the WCW. He wanted to do everything opposite from WWF, which I can understand. He created the first live weekly televised show because Monday Night Raw was
Right, right.
taped. He concentrated on the demographic from 18 to 39,
hmm
where Vince was more kid friendly, to the lower demographic. Um, he did. They admitted. They said it. They narrated it that he poached WWF talent, but who didn't? We've said that Vince McMahon poached the territories in the mid
Yeah.
'80s.
And
So Bischoff did it here when he had to.
I mean, even in the 90s when he got Flair and he got Sid, later on gets Vader, so
And
it
Bischoff
was
to me
one.
really didn't poach because okay, he signs Hulk Hogan, he convinces him to come out of retirement.
Tomorrow retirement.
He signed Savage, who was in
They were
a
pushing him out
precarious.
anyway. They didn't want him
Exactly.
to
Yeah, there you
wrestle
go.
anymore.
So he signs the guy because he knows
They
he still
weren't
has
doing they
something
weren't
left to give.
they weren't doing anything with Luger, and Luger was a former NWA WCW guy anyway. So
Exactly. So he comes over to take
yeah,
the opportunity to run here. Then
just the
Diamond
business.
Dallas Page tells Bischoff that Scott Hall's contract's coming
Yeah.
up. Scott Hall went for the money, and then sure enough, a month later, Kevin
Yeah.
Nash.
And this is a
So it
former
wasn't really
WCW guys anyway.
exactly. So he didn't poach them. He just approached them at the right time, going, "Hey, you
Yeah.
want more
They
money for
actually
less
approached
days?"
they actually approached him when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So when you say poached in this case, I
not
mean,
really.
you
That's
can
part
make
of the
the argument
business.
for it, but he really didn't.
Part of the business. Part of the business.
Exactly.
It goes.
Um, he so he brings in Hogan, Hall, and Nash. He has the first based reality storyline, the New World Order, and at this point now he's beating WWF badly, which he really was. The ratings were they were crushing him. Vince Russo had started more attitude storylines, according to him, with new characters. He called it Crash TV. But the thing with Vince Russo though was he had somebody to keep him in line in the WWF, which was Vince McMahon. When
Yeah,
he
he
gets to
had
WCW, nobody's watching him.
he had a sort of a filter, and he had a guy that could override him, and yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't, you can't take, you got to take the good with the bad because Russo deserves credit for the
He
attitude era.
does.
You can't take it away
Yes.
from him. Now, does he get 100% credit? No.
No.
I think what did this guy mention? Meltzer. Well, he had Stone Cold and he had The Rock. Was it Meltzer that said that, or was it somebody else? Somebody else said like, well, to be fair, they had The Rock and they had Austin. These are two of the greatest of all time. That's true, but I kind of felt like he put him in a good position to show their talents.
Yeah.
So
Especially in the middle of '98 to '99, where
yeah.
the ratings changed. Um,
I mean, he wrote a lot of
it,
crap too, though, because we've been
yes,
covering
he
we've
did.
been covering those in your houses.
Yeah.
There was a lot of garbage in there too, in 98, 99. But
Well, Meltzer had mentioned that since they had added the second show, SmackDown. What was I going to say? So there was no raise for Vince Russo. He said
yeah,
he wanted to move his family closer,
yeah,
and Vince said, and I quote, "You make enough money, hire a nanny."
yeah.
Now I got to agree with one thing
I know what I
because
know what you're thinking about. Yeah.
he's Italian, I'm Italian. We don't hire people to raise our children. We do it ourselves.
You could see he meant it too, though. Yeah, you could see
Yes,
he
he
really,
did,
yeah, you
and
could
I
tell,
agree
like,
100% with what he said. I
yeah,
agree with it
yeah,
because that's just the way Italians are. So for Vince to, and of course, Vince McMahon was not on the show to rebut it, nor how Hulk Hogan noticed wasn't on this either, which I really thought
well,
with this episode coming that he would be on it. He wasn't
that story though I've heard 1,000 times from Russo about the
about
babysitter,
Vince.
about the
Yeah,
nanny. I believe that story, and he wasn't. It was hard writing those two shows. You went from
this
it's
is
hard
true.
enough. It's hard enough writing one show plus the
Even
pay
though
per
he says
views.
writing is no brain surgery, but still,
No, but
it's.
it's
I mean,
still, yeah, yeah,
you're writing a 2 hour show
yeah.
to
It's a lot.
compete with your
It's a
competitor. Yeah,
lot.
it is. It has to be.
You'll hear anybody that works for Vince. They'll say that Cornette, Pritchard. They'll say it's not easy working for that guy. It's not easy. And the mistake that Vince made was not locking him up with a contract.
Yeah.
He was working like on like sort of like a handshake deal because if you remember the backstory of Vince Russo, he was Vic Venom. He was writing on a WWF magazine. He was doing live wire and that stuff. And then they put him as basically, I guess he was kind of head booker, right? I guess with Vince, he he was pretty much the booker. So that was the mistake that Vince made was not locking him up in an airtight contract. But
Exactly. So by the time 1999 rolls around, Russo heads to WCW, and around the same time that Eric Bischoff was let go from WCW.
right, did you notice they didn't mention Ed Ferrara?
No, they didn't.
It was like he was.
And there's
It's like he
no
didn't.
need to either.
No, but they went there together. Is my point. They pretended like that didn't happen. Like it was just Russo and that was it.
If you think back on it, would you really want to remember Ed
No,
Ferrara's
no, no,
Oklahoma
no.
there? Because I would.
I'm putting it out there for the audience and
Yeah,
for
they didn't mention that Ed Ferrara went
yeah.
with
It
Russo to
was like
WCW.
it was like he never existed.
Well, again, we wish to God it didn't. But
Bro.
yeah. The only flashbacks I've had is him making fun of Jim Ross, which was totally like
Oh
no,
no,
not.
the bro thing is Vince Russo. The whole thing about
Oh yeah,
Ferrara was
everything we have in his mouth is bro. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I know what
but
you're talking
Ed
about Ferrara.
Ferrara is just
No,
like
no, no, I don't like him, Beth. What he did to JR, that was wrong, man. That was wrong.
ugh. So in October '99, Vince Russo took over. In 3 months, ratings went up according to him. According to other people, on an average, it really didn't.
I haven't seen the numbers. I don't know. It probably did though, but it was probably minuscule. I don't know. It probably did go up a little bit. But
If
think about it.
if you're comparing it to WWE, then obviously you can't. You'll say you're still losing the rating wars. But if you
Right.
went from a 2.5 to a
Right.
3.3, then
Or it's
yes,
even
your ratings
or
went
even a
up.
2.9.
Something, anything
Technically,
is an
technically,
increase.
I haven't looked at the numbers, but
But
yeah,
but if they're looking at it to where okay, you're still losing by
maybe it
three
wasn't.
million
Yeah.
viewers
It's not enough.
to
Yeah.
exactly. So that's probably what Meltzer was
Right.
pointing to. So management sends him home. He's like, well, then just pay me out the rest of my
He had
contract and I'm out of
he
here.
had a contract. Not only that, his contract said that he's the head. that he's in charge.
Yeah.
It was in his contract.
Now, what's funny is, and we're going to shake that up, is Brad Siegel brings both men back with Eric Bischoff supposedly being above Vince Russo.
Yeah, I don't know. Not according. Not
First, I'm
according to
hearing of
Russo.
this.
Yeah. I thought that they were kind of like equal. If Russo wasn't higher, they were certainly equal. Russo was not underneath him. I never heard that
Yeah.
Bischoff was above Russo. I never heard that, especially the money they were paying Russo.
No podcast, no interview,
I've
no
never heard
radio
that
thing, no
before.
article. Have we ever
I don't
heard
know.
until tonight that Bischoff was above him
I
until
don't.
it came out of
I
his
don't.
mouth?
I don't think that's true. But
Now you want to hear an even bigger lie? They have Jeff Jarrett on here,
oh Lord,
who
Jesus.
says they
He
called
broke.
him.
He broke 6,000 guitars, never drew a dime. And when Jeff Jarrett came out, you get a rat piss on Cotton. What
And
the
he's
hell
the
was
last
this?
outlaw.
Where did that come from? He says they call otherwise. What did he say? They call me the last outlaw. Otherwise, I said nobody calls
I
you
know
that.
they called him the
Dude.
chosen one,
Yeah, I mean,
which was a far fetched.
chosen for what? I don't know. Chosen to put people to sleep.
Chosen to suck.
Lord Jesus. But I will say
I've never heard of the last outlaw.
I never heard of it. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Anybody watching this, comment and tell us if you ever heard this. I never heard the last outlaw be referred to Jeff Jarrett.
It's possible that in TNA or something. I wasn't watching, so I don't know.
Well, that's TNA. I mean,
but I'm saying the way that he said it was like people call him like the fan. Yeah, we call him nobody. All right, I don't want to dump on Jeff Jarrett anymore. I will say this about Jeff because we'll be here forever. I will say this: Jeff made a lot of sense on this show. He made a lot.
Yes, he did. I agree with that. He did. Jeff was probably the only level-headed person on here that we didn't look at going, you're full of shit.
Ironically. I
know, right? It was him of all people.
Yeah.
You know, he said that they, you know, according to Russo and Bischoff, they had a philosophical difference in running the show.
Yeah.
He mentioned the storyline, and this is, oh my God, with Lance Storm and Bischoff, that Eric was supposed to be Lance's illegitimate father. Meanwhile, Lance Storm is like, yeah, Eric's like 10 years older than me. How's that going to work? Something like that is like, you got to be kidding me. So I thought that was funny when Lance Storm mentioned that. They devised new storylines together. Now, we talked about it in the Hogan episode, that they shut the company down for 2 weeks, stripped everybody of the titles, which pretty much they're saying nothing up to this point counts anymore. They started the New Blood versus the Millionaires Club or the Billionaires Club, whichever one it was. It took off for a minute, and then it crapped out just as fast, unfortunately. And Russo called Siegel, and that's when I'm sorry, hold on, let me read on that. At this point now, Eric Bischoff was done with Vince Russo. Russo calls Siegel, and Siegel says, it's you, you're doing the writing. So Siegel playing two ends against the middle with these guys, saying, Russo, you're the man. Bischoff, you're over him. Anytime he talks to them, who knows? Because Brad Siegel was an interview during this, so we don't know the politicking or anything that went on with that. So as we get to the night of the event, Russo wanted Booker T as the new champion. He wanted the main event to be Jeff Jarrett versus Booker T.
He said he had the meeting that way. He had the meeting with all the, I guess, all the people.
It was unanimous around the table.
Unanimous around the table, yeah. They wanted Booker T to get the belt, yeah.
Now, we mentioned in the Hogan episode that Hogan had gone to him and asked him, where do you see me for the next few months? And Russo said, honestly, bro, I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
So I've said it before that I think Hogan doing what Hogan did at the Bash, made himself still legitimate and still relevant in the company because him being pulling the creative control card gives him the title and keeps him on the show, whereas Russo just wanted to really realistically face him out.
Yeah, but the problem is that Hogan didn't have the belt. Jeff Jarrett was the champion. So how could you just walk in there and say, well, I'm getting the championship? They should have just pulled him out of the match.
They really should have just never. They said that they wanted to give how they put it. Russo wanted Booker T to be the champion. Jarrett was bought into it. He was supposed to beat Hogan as one big last win before he got the loss to Booker T. So it was always meant to where the two matches would happen. That was a mistake. Just announce that Bash at the Beach, it's Jarrett versus Booker. Hogan's not in the
and be done with it. But I guess they didn't see all this stuff happen. So
various times Russo rewrites the script, as we all know. Hogan finally is okay with it. Now, I love how they waited till the very end of the show, but I'm going to
Yeah,
bring it up now.
yeah.
The infamous fax that Hogan sends 20 minutes after the office closes, because now they're not going to get this till Monday or Tuesday when they're back in the
Right.
office.
And the show's already over.
Exactly. So now Russo gets to Jacksonville, I believe, where the show was, and Eric comes to him and says, "We've got a problem." Hogan doesn't want to do it.
That doesn't work for me, brother.
Exactly. So, what was I going to say? So they have the meeting. He's telling them this, that, and the other. Hogan's not doing it. So Vince Russo goes to Jarrett and says the infamous "screw him. If he's not going to do business, we'll do business for him." Tells Jarrett to lay down. And Jarrett even said he wasn't comfortable with it because if you notice and rewatching the pay per view, you see it when Jarrett's music hit. It hit for a good minute before
Right,
he
right,
even
right.
came down.
Before he came out, but the missing part, I mean, just to go back for a second,
Yeah.
was that Russo said that he spoke to Hogan and told him everything that was going to happen, and that okay, look, this is what's going to
Everything that did
happen.
happen that
Right,
night,
right,
he
right,
said
right.
he told him.
That's what he said. Bischoff says that didn't happen, right? And Hogan's not here, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't hear this
But
side.
they didn't say the part that Russo has spoken about this, that he told Hogan, no, brother, if this was a shoot, this is how it would happen, and then he laid
Yes.
everything out. So, yes, Jarrett was upset about it because he'd left Jarrett in the dark. Remember, Russo tells him, but he doesn't fill him in on what's going on. This is a work shoot. He just tells him Hogan's not going to lay down for you. So Jarrett's angry about it, and he tells him this doesn't even make any sense, and he didn't want to do it at first, and he waited however many minutes in the back to actually come out. By the time he gets out, he's legitimately angry because remember, Jarrett has been in the business forever. His father was a promoter, so he
This
has
goes back all the way to his grandmother.
yeah, he has a different outlook on the way business is supposed to be done. So
Not to mention, he said that if you confuse the audience, you'll lose them.
he's right.
Exactly,
He's right.
100%. Like I said, he was the only level-headed one in
Yeah.
this that I actually like.
And honest.
Oh,
you could tell that he's being honest, and yeah.
Yeah, because there hasn't been Russo and Bischoff over the years have had this interview about this topic extensively, and to me, I don't know about you, but I've never heard the same thing twice.
No, from Russo hasn't changed his story. Bischoff kind of gets a little shaky.
Russo was adamant
the same story
about we when we covered the Hogan episode, we didn't dog Russo for it because not much.
He's been consistent.
Yeah.
That was funny. I did laugh when Meltzer said, what did Meltzer say? It's like one liar and another liar or something like that. I was like,
he's one to talk.
Yeah.
So the audience actually believed Hogan was pissed when this happened. And what really aggravated me watching this, because then it proved me to be, it was wrong. Now, if Eric is over Russo, why?
He said that
number one,
Brad
why is he-
Siegel. Yeah, because he said that they laid it out, and that Brad Siegel supposedly said, go with Bischoff's idea, which Russo didn't say that. I don't know if Bischoff. I don't know who's lying, man. I this is what I think. I mean, I should probably say this at the end, but I'll just say it now.
Just say it now.
I think like it's 75% of what Russo's saying is true, and then maybe like there's about 25, maybe 20% that might even be less than that. He might be. You know what? Let me rephrase that. I think Russo's telling about 90% of the truth.
Yes,
and there's probably about 10% that maybe. I don't know, because why would Bischoff say that Brad Siegel stepped in and Brad Siegel overrided it, unless he's just completely lying? I mean,
and it goes back to what I said earlier. Russo, he tells Russo, "No, you're the man writing this stuff." Then he tells Bischoff, "No, you're over Russo." It's two ends against the middle.
But only those guys, only the four of them, I guess, that were in that. Because remember, Siegel's on the phone, but in the room is Bischoff, Hogan, and Russo.
Yeah.
So
it would have been better if Brad Siegel was available to do it to clarify things. But
at this point, he probably
not really. No. So after the whole thing, he lays down. Hogan, says his speech. This is why the company's in the way it is because of bullshit like this. He leaves and whatnot. What chapped me was, he's saying, Eric is saying how him and Hogan are on the plane high-fiving each other.
Right, but remember, but the tournament, Bischoff said there was
Yeah,
supposed to be a tournament.
and I actually agreed with this. It was supposed to be I think it was a 32-man tournament for the title.
Mm.
It was supposed to be vacated. That was supposed to commence at Halloween
Well, it
Havoc.
was supposed to culminate. It was supposed the
Culminate,
last
sorry,
match. The last
the
match was
finals
supposed to
of
be
it.
at
Yeah,
yes, the finals.
and Hogan was to come out with the belt going, I'm
Right,
the
right, right,
champion,
right.
and then
That
probably
yeah,
a title for title.
that actually sounds pretty good. That sounds like a good storyline.
I
I would have
like
liked
that
to have seen that.
idea, but
So
unfortunately,
supposedly they agreed about, according to Bischoff, they agreed on that in the locker room. According to
yes.
Bischoff.
But the fact that Brad Siegel couldn't afford to put Hogan on TV
Right.
anymore,
Well, that they didn't mention that, but yeah,
no, they
we've
didn't mention
discussed
that.
that.
Yeah, we'll get to that
It's
in a little
worth
bit.
mentioning now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mention it towards the end about the whole aftermath that
Yeah.
Monday. But now, 30 minutes after Hogan and Bischoff land, their phones are blowing up because of Russo's promo.
Russo's promo. So this is what I think happened. This is what I think. And I said this
Yeah.
in the episode. I think that I think they did know that that was going to happen, but Russo went so far into burying Hogan that Hogan got angry, and he didn't think that he was going to like bury him the way that he did, and then he was like, "Oh, the hell with this, I'm going to sue them." I think that's what happened. I don't think that Hogan didn't know that Russo was going to cut that promo. That's what Bischoff says. Oh, he didn't know he was going to cut that promo.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know Russo the next day read that Russo got one over on Hogan, and that how he was looking at this going forward as Russo and Jarrett versus Booker and Hogan.
Right.
That's where the whole thing,
Because that's the whole
where Brad
discrepancy,
Siegel,
man.
yeah,
Because these guys are saying that they didn't. Bischoff is saying that he didn't know that Booker T was going to fight Jarrett that night for the title.
but he was in on that meeting.
But
He
he's
was
saying
one of the guys at that table. I know, but he's saying
no,
that.
no, no, no. He wasn't there. He wasn't at the table. He wasn't at the
Oh, he
table.
wasn't. Okay.
You're talking about if you're talking about the meeting where everybody agreed, he wasn't there. He was at his home because I watched a podcast with Bischoff. He discussed it. He wasn't in the office or anything when all of that happened. I actually do believe him because Russo has never said that Bischoff was actually there. He said he was there at Bash at the Beach with Hogan, and when they had that conference call with Siegel that day. But prior to that, he wasn't. But either way, he's saying that he didn't know that night. That he didn't know that. So
I don't believe that going forward into this pay-per-view that Bischoff did not know what the main event was supposed
right,
to
that they
be.
were gonna have another match. I don't think that he didn't know that. I think it just came down to the promo. It was so bad. It was so scathing on Hogan when he called him a bald piece of crap or something like that.
Yeah, and Lance Storm was like, I don't know why Hogan was offended by it. He's bald.
Yeah.
But as far as the rest of the promo goes, I promise, or else I'll go in the goddamn grave. You'll never see that piece of shit here again.
I mean, he was right though. You never saw him in WWE.
He was right, but it was because Brett Siegel tells him 2 days later, how did you handle it with Hogan?
Well,
he said, I haven't called him yet. He said, don't.
Okay, so they didn't show that in this episode.
They didn't show that.
We know that Russo has said that he regrets not calling Hogan. He says, "Oh, I gave Hogan my word. I would call him after that." And he said that Siegel said, "Don't call him because I can't afford to put him on TV." And so maybe that's why Hogan got upset because he never called him. Only they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he calls the radio station the next day.
Bubba Love Sponge show. Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes off on it. Hogan was to bring they mentioned that Hogan was to bring the title back at Halloween Havoc.
He had the wrong belt though.
Yes, he did.
Hogan thought he had the real one. He had the duplicate. Booker T
Yep.
had the real one.
Eric never, supposedly, like you said earlier, never approved any of it. Hogan files the lawsuit. Both times the judge threw it out because you can't file a defamation of character on a fictional character.
Yeah, he never said his real name. He never said Terry or anything like that. He called him Hulk Hogan.
No, he said Hulk Hogan. He was like, okay. So, and then at the end of this, which I thought was funny, is where they mentioned that Hogan sent the fax.
Yeah, they brought
after which Meltzer is questioning.
He said he didn't hear that, but I think it came out in the deposition. I think the fax actually came out in the deposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was also not only Vince Russo mentioned it on interview years later, but it was mentioned one other time too. I remember.
Yeah. I don't know why this guy was like, oh, I never heard that. Maybe you didn't hear it back then, but
the only thing that I agreed with Hogan like I said earlier, with as far as the creative control card to keep yourself relevant in the company. But to send a fax 20 minutes after you know the office is closed is just
I think it was
immature
Hogan's lawyer. I
garbage.
think it was Hogan's lawyer.
I mean, because you know they're not going to get this until after the
Well,
show.
that's why he did it. Remember what
Exactly.
Jarrett said, that he was playing chess. Everybody else
Yes.
was playing
When
checkers.
everybody's playing checkers.
He was
Mm-hmm.
playing chess, because what ends up happening, he wins the lawsuit against WCW and he gets some money. They don't know how much it was. He lost the
Yeah.
defamation, but he won against WCW.
And he was pretty much paid to stay home through
Yeah.
the time of the contract.
Yeah.
Now, Meltzer had said, by this point, Hogan couldn't draw. I'm sorry. Anybody see him in 2002 when he came back? He's
Yeah,
drawing like crazy, even though, besides
but
the other guys on the roster. But
but
Hogan
he
was
was
still a
he
draw at this point.
but he was booked properly in WWF at the time, and the WWF fans wanted to see him again. I wouldn't say he wasn't a draw. Nobody could have saved him. Nobody could have saved WCW. Nobody. You could have had
Not
the
at this
Undertaker
point.
go over there. You could have had Shawn Michaels go over there. It wouldn't have worked. It was already, the ship was done. So I don't think
It
that's
was
fair. I don't think it's fair to say, oh, Hogan couldn't draw.
when you
Nobody could
have
draw.
16 different champions
That was
inside of
insane.
1 year, 16 champions.
It was done. It was done.
You're done. And especially when you got David Arquette as one of those champions, you're done. Booker T said,
Russo was
five-time champion in 8 months.
Yeah.
That's not good. And then Russo's running around with the freaking title as well.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, Eric called Meltzer an idiot, which good one, Eric, because he said, Meltzer hates Hogan.
He might.
Well, then he should leave his personal stuff out of this and just report the facts. If he's saying he can't draw, find somebody else that can back your story.
Mm-hmm.
Because despite the fact that he's facing Billy Kidman, people were into the match. Not as much, but then again, it's WCW in 2000.
Yeah, so
nobody's really watching this.
No.
So now Meltzer said, Booker wins the title. That's cool. Okay. Now at the very end of the show, they're saying, now this is where there's also conflicting stories, because if you listen to this and then if you've watched the Monday Night Wars documentary, there's two different stories. Eric Bischoff said he was buying WCW for $67 million.
Right, he had a group. He had a group together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now in the Monday Night Wars, Eric Bischoff talks about in here that said that he had a TV contract for Thursday nights. The Monday Night Wars documentary that came out back when this was all said and done, he said that the sale was going to go through, but he would not get the TV time.
Yeah,
because he said, and I quote, "Well, without the TV time, the company's worth $20."
Exactly. So the story is that offer, he was going to get the sale was going to go through, but it was contingent upon having the TV time on TNT. Once the TNT TV time was removed, the company wasn't worth anything, and the whole deal fell apart. So Bischoff is telling
Turner took it off the table.
Yeah, Bischoff is telling the truth though on that. That's what happened. Once they lost the TV time, it fell apart because it wasn't worth anything. Without TV time,
the company was nothing.
It was worth nothing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and then Turner takes it off the table, and next thing you know, because Bischoff's investors go, the deal's done, and he's getting all excited. He goes, no,
It fell
you don't
apart.
understand. It fell apart, and then Vince McMahon up and buys him, and he owns WCW. Yeah, practically nothing. So I think it was less than $20 million that he got.
I think it was less than 5. They said it was like They said it was like, I think, $2 million for the WCW name and stuff, and it was like 1.7,
a little bit for the library.
For the library, yeah.
Yeah, he got it for a steal.
Yeah, he got it. Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Well, because he didn't need the television time; he already had it. All he needed was the name.
He just wanted to put WCW out of business, and he succeeded.
Exactly, because Bischoff tried for 3 years, almost became successful, but at the last minute, Vince, I'll give them both credit, pulled them out. Only one Vince's head got bigger than and when he went to WCW, proved that he could not do it on his own. But that's a story for another time. But as far as this event goes, I believe not Eric. I believe Vince Russo.
Yeah, I believe most of what Russo said.
Most of what he says.
Most of it, what he said. Yeah. So,
and it would have been nice if they had Hogan on here to give because you had Jarrett, so why not have Hogan?
Yeah, I guess maybe it would have just been too long. Maybe I don't know. You
Oh, I'm
wouldn't.
fine with that.
No,
This
I
is like
yeah,
one of the most sought out things that has happened since the Montreal. I
yeah.
mean,
I just think that maybe they could only do a certain amount of time. They're only allotted like X amount of episodes, so maybe it is what it is. Unfortunately.
yeah,
All right, well, you guys let us know what you think about this crazy story that doesn't seem to go away.
never
Uh,
does.
the next week's Marty Jannetty, so get ready, buckle up.
Oh, I
Next
can't
episode,
wait. Oh, I can't wait.
the finale. All right,
Yes.
please let us know what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.